All right, y'all. What's going on? Welcome to the Monday Night Live stream. So, I'll wait for folks to funnel on in before I get started here. But let me know if you hear me loud and clearly in the chat. Put a 1 in the chat if the sound is good. Let me know if I need to adjust anything. I got a bit of a new setup, as some of you might be able to tell. But we'll see. Jay, what's going on? Good to see you in here. Judith, welcome back. Miss D, what's going on? Big shout out to you tuning in from Raleigh. Annie, what's going on? All right, we got some ones in the chat here. There we go. Welcome, welcome, y'all. What's going on? Good to see you in here. I gotta upload something in my frame here right quick. So let me see about doing that. Give me 1 second here. I know I do this. How's everybody feeling, by the way? How are y'all feeling? Put a W in the chat if your week is going well so far. You're getting off to a good start. Yeah, let's see. And I'm going to be doing a bit of a review of an interesting video I found today. No, it's not there. Where's it at? I don't know. I'd have to re-upload it here. There we go. All right.
Actually foods that rot in your colon. I'm Dr. Ken Berry, a family physician. Let me give you the top 7 foods that actually do rot in your
Okay, there we go. Not quite yet. That's right, Virgo Black. Good to see you in here. I'm not gonna hold y'all too long tonight. But I came across an interesting video, and people have been asking me about cleanse the gut. And I saw this interesting video that Dr. Ken Berry did about foods that rot in your gut. And the claim that people will make about meat rotting in your gut or rotting in your stomach, right? And this word rotting. So we had to clear that up, right? And clear up the confusion and talk about how to cleanse the gut. So we're going to hear them out tonight, and I'm going to add some critical details that is very important to know as far as gut health, which is kind of my thing. All right. So we get started here. Let's see what my man has to say.
There are actually foods that rot in your colon. I'm Dr. Ken Berry, a family physician. Let me give you the top 7 foods that actually do rot in your colon. Now, you may have been told in the past that meat, red meat, fatty meat, rots in your colon. This is absolutely untrue. Some vegans are still repeating this myth to this day. Absolutely untrue. Meat is completely digested and absorbed before it ever makes it to your colon. But there are some foods.
So that's not exactly true. And if that were true, then if you were to be on an all meat diet, then pretty much it wouldn't really be any kind of bowel movements, right? So we know that that's not true. Now it changes form. So technically it's not meat at that point. It is then changed into a different form. But I mean, for all intents and purposes, it is still the meat. Of course, as it moves through the digestive process, there are nutrients and different things that are extracted from it as it changes form, right? But there is still a metabolic process that takes place on it as it moves through the gut. Now, ideally, should it be all the way broken down as it moves through your digestive tract? Yes, it should be, but that's not always the case.
Foods that absolutely do rot in your colon. Number 1, beans. Beans of any kind. Now, let's talk about what the word rot actually means. It has a definition. Merriam-Webster says that the word rot, the verb to rot, means to undergo decomposition from the action of bacteria or fungi. So bacteria and funguses eating something up, that's the definition of the word rot. So beans are not digested and absorbed by your small intestine.
Now, this is an extraordinary claim for him to make, right? So if the claim is that beans are not digested and nutrients is not absorbed from the beans, that's a very strong claim that you're going to need evidence for, right? Because to make that claim implies that beans actually do not have any organic materials. The cell walls of plants is not broken down. It's not the cell wall of the beans is not broken down no matter how much you cook it. It's completely it goes completely undigested. No nutrients absorbed from it, which means there are no carbs, fats, or proteins in beans. There's no nutritional value whatsoever. And if you eat beans, you swallow a bean, it will move through your entire digestive tract without the digestive process and acting on it. It is a very, very strong claim, right? Um, which to me, I don't know why he would make a claim. I don't. Maybe he doesn't understand how strong of a claim that is, right? But this is a claim that would be universally rejected by the entire scientific community at large. I'm talking global, because that's how obscene that claim actually is.
They do make it to the colon, and then bacteria and funguses cause them to rot in your colon. Number two is wheat. Yeah, the fiber in wheat is not digested and absorbed by your small intestine or your stomach. It makes it to your.
Okay, so basically, now the claim that he made about beans, he could have gotten away with the claim if he would have said the fiber in beans is not digested, right? That is true, but the thing is that your body is not supposed to digest fiber inside your upper gut, right? It is supposed to move through your entire digestive tract. In fact, one of the benefits of having dietary fiber is what that fiber does as it moves through your digestive tract. So you cook a food, you loosen up and break down the cell walls of the food, whether it be wheat or beans or whatever this is. You soak it, you boil it, whatever the case is, and that opens it up and makes it so that your gut has an easier time of breaking it down as it goes through your digestive tract, and then the nutrients are then absorbed. Now, of course, the fiber binds to harmful toxins, substances, metabolites, and things like that. And it expands as it moves through your digestive tract and then ultimately ends up in your colon. And then as a result, that fiber will then go through a fermentation process in your gut where your good gut bacteria will then feed on that fiber and use it as a food source for them to proliferate. The reason why this is important is because that fiber acts as a prebiotic food source for your probiotics. So probiotics meaning beneficial gut bacteria, prebiotics is the food for that beneficial gut bacteria. And then that beneficial gut bacteria will then release or give you back postbiotics. So examples of postbiotics could be short chain fatty acids that optimize the metabolic process of breaking down lipids and engaging in fat metabolism. Your probiotics produce B12. Okay, your probiotics create folate and various different vitamins like K1 and things like this, right? So that is a very key point of information to understand about why you should have that dietary fiber and the benefits that it has. So it's kind of odd to write off that whole entire process that I just explained as just rotting and just not digesting, your body not digesting beans or whatever the case is. It's a tremendous amount of information he's leaving out.
Your colon, where it then rots as bacteria and fungi break it apart because your stomach could not do that. Next is onions and garlic. Yeah, sorry, they rot in your colon absolutely without a doubt. Next is oats. Yeah, you know that Quaker oatmeal that you thought was so healthy? You can't even break that down and digest that in your small intestine. It goes straight to your large intestine where bacteria and fungi cause it to rot. What about broccoli?
So again, these are extremely strong claims to make, right? Where they skip past your small intestine, stomach, and go straight to your lower gut. It's kind of odd to say that, right? We know that Um, for example, oats are very rich in protein, carbohydrates, magnesium, manganese, iron, copper, folate, good source of thiamine, selenium. It's kind of odd why he would make these claims. This is one reason why I actually wanted to review this video and bring attention to this, is because of how obscene the claims are. Now, if he is going to basically just name anything that comes from plants, we see what the problem is here, because every plant-based food has fiber. So if the argument is, well, if anything that has fiber necessarily doesn't get digested or your gut doesn't pull nutrients from those foods, I mean, then you have to apply this claim to anything from spinach to kale to quinoa to any kind of legumes or sweet potatoes or I don't know, anything, fruits. Now, here's the interesting thing is if wheat didn't break down or digest in your body, if your gut couldn't digest wheat, if your gut couldn't digest legumes, if your gut couldn't digest broccoli or anything like that, why does it have a glycemic index score? Why does it have a glycemic load score? Now, in addition to that, on his channel, he often talks about, well, the problem with plant-based foods is the fact that they're loaded with carbs. Right? The carbohydrates is the problem. The carbohydrate cause you to be diabetic and makes it impossible to lose weight and all that kind of stuff. Now, if it doesn't get digested and it doesn't break down in your gut, then how does it make you gain weight? How do the carbs make you gain weight if these foods move through your entire digestive tract going undigested? Giant plot hole, right? So this is very shocking to me because he's been railing against carbs and oats and beans and any types of starches, potatoes, grains, and all of this kind of stuff, right? And he's even been talking about vegetables with all the anti-nutrients and all of this type of stuff. But if these things don't get digested, then how is that possible? Right? So this is kind of like, I mean, maybe he just doesn't think that his audience is just educated enough in nutrition to know this stuff, which even if that was the case, well, you can't say that, there's too many carbs in these foods and that's why this is a problem, and the anti-nutrients and all of this type of stuff, because the only way those things would be a problem is if those foods were digested.
Cabbage, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, yeah, they all rot in your colon. Absolutely. Now, the question becomes, is that a bad thing that they rot in your colon? Well, if broccoli is rotting in your refrigerator, you consider that a good thing or a bad thing? Do you like the smell of rotting cabbage in your crisper drawer when you open that drawer and there's that head of cabbage you forgot and you're like, oh my God? No. Another great way to tell if something that you're eating is rotting in your colon or not is because when bacteria and funguses break down something as it rots, it produces gas, and the gas has a bad smell. And so if you're currently having flatulence that has a bad smell, you're eating something that is rotting in your colon. This is one.
Okay, so he's now equating cabbage rotting in your fridge to cabbage rotting in your gut. So he doesn't understand how long the digestive process actually takes, right? Now, there's a very big difference between a food sitting in, like a head of cabbage or something, sitting in your fridge for weeks and then expiring over a period of days and weeks and whatever. The cabbage is not going to sit in your gut for that length of time, right? So there's the first problems. I don't even know why he would equate that, because your fridge is very different than a colon. So that comparison doesn't work in any way, shape, or form or on any logical basis. Now, what's weird to me is the fact that he's a doctor, he's a physician. Now, if he's actually went through all the curriculum and got his degree and everything like that, and he's actually like a legit doctor or physician, and surely he should know the difference between the inside of a refrigerator and a colon, right? I think that that's a pretty low bar to safely get over, right? Especially if you're, college educated and a practicing doctor, right? These are very basic things that you should know. Now, I'm going to touch on the bacteria and the gas and the smelling bad thing. I'm going to touch on that for a second because he runs into some problems here coming up.
One of the reasons that when people on a carnivore diet, one of the first things they notice after just a few weeks on carnivore is that flatulence is greatly diminished, in many cases 80-90% reduced. But then also when they do have a little flatulence, there's often no smell, a very mild smell. That's because the meat and the eggs and the seafood that they're eating on a carnivore diet is being completely digested and absorbed.
So that's a flat out lie. Okay. So what that implies to me is that he doesn't understand what actually causes the smell, right? Now, the bad smell, a large part of the bad smell is a result of excess methionine. Okay. Animal products, especially, red meat or just, any type of animal products, dairy, eggs, things like that, they're high in methionine. Okay. So as these foods break down in your gut, the level of sulfur in your body increases. Sulfur is largely responsible for that really bad smell, right? So it starts off as kind of like a weird, moldy smell. You might actually experience like elderly people who have this kind of funky, moldy smell. Or some people just have like a strange kind of funky body odor. That a lot of times is a result of not only just excess upper gut bacteria or bad bacteria, but excess methionine in the body and a buildup of sulfur. Okay. So this produces a very acidic environment inside your body, not just contained in your stomach, but basically there's just an overall elevation of acid buildup that goes on in your body. This is what leads to chronic kidney disease, fatty liver disease. This is what leads to excess plaque buildup on your tongue, acid reflux, gout, things like this, right? And that acidic environment is very beneficial for harmful gut bacteria, right? So if you've ever had like an infection of like H. pylori, for example, H. pylori, one of the problems with it is it's very acidic to the point where it gives you acid reflux, heartburn, a plaquey tongue, bad breath, things like this, right? Because that overaccumulation of bad bacteria is what causes those side effects. So one of the worst things that you can do is actually have a diet high in methionine and cysteine and things like that, because this raises homocysteine, acid formation in the body, which then causes vascular constriction, excess interstitial fluid buildup, which raises your blood pressure, causes vascular constriction, also acts as a diuretic, depleting fluid from your cells. And well, if you eat a carnivore diet, you're reducing your carbohydrate intake. You're also assisting in that reduction in, hydration inside your cells. Over a period of time, this also leads to constipation and swings between constipation and diarrhea. I found an interesting account. I think it was on Instagram called like Carnivore Cringe, where they basically collect comments from the comment section or like forums, carnivore forums of people asking what to do about the heart palpitations, the chronic fatigue, the edema, the neuropathy, the constipation, the diarrhea, that kind of thing, right? So this account, Carnivore Cringe, they take the comment section from all these different forums and stuff, and they make posts out of them, right? So this is essentially what happens, right? So uh, a lot of this stuff that he's leaving out, which is kind of obscene too, to say that there's no smell, right, on a carnivore diet, right? Because it was like, well, with the sulfur. Right? So, okay.
by their small intestine in their stomach. None of it's making it to their colon. Therefore, there's nothing there left to rot.
So if there's nothing making it to the colon, then how do you produce bowel movements? Also, by the way, actual carnivores, they have horrible smelling breath and they have horrible, pungent, strong smelling urine and fecal matter. A great example of this is anybody who's ever had a cat. Well, you know how the cat litter box smells. And the only way to keeping it from destroying the smell in your house is you have to pour all types of alkalizing substances on top of it, right? For example, baking soda. You have to frequently change the litter and all of that type of stuff because of how bad the smell gets.
In their colon. Therefore, they have greatly reduced flatulence, and the flatulence they do have has virtually no smell. So the next time you hear a poor vegan say that meat rots in your colon, you can share this video with them and say, actually, it's the beans and the wheat and the vegetables. That's what's rotting in your colon. That's why every time you pass gas, you clear the room and peel the paint off the wall. This is Dr. Berry. I'll see you next time. There are actually...
So I just basically wanted to share that with y'all because he goes and he uses the word rot. Now, there's different types of rotting, right? You have putrefaction, you have fermentation, right? Plant matter goes through a fermentation process in your gut. Now, to say that, whole grains like oats or wheat don't digest in your gut, well, we have a specific digestive enzyme that our body produces called amylase. Okay. So we have, for a few, probably the most common three is pepsin, trypsin, and amylase, right? Pepsin breaks down proteins. Amylase helps to break down carbohydrates, right? And your body is able to extract glucose or energy from the carbohydrate-rich foods that you eat, right? So this enzyme specifically that our gut produces is what allows us to actually digest these foods and have them go through a metabolic process. So apparently Dr. Ken Berry does not know what amylase is. Okay. He also doesn't know that vegetables have nutritional value. Legumes have nutritional value. The entire scientific nutritional community knows this, and there's plenty of studies on it, which is why I don't know why he would make that claim. Also, ironically, in past videos, he has also suggested that people drink apple cider vinegar because of all the weight loss benefits. Apple cider vinegar, according to his definition, is the byproduct of rotten apples. Okay, apple cider vinegar, you make that by fermenting apple pectin. Right. Also, things like sauerkraut, kimchi, kombucha, pickles, these different types of fermented foods, coconut yogurt, cashew yogurt, almond yogurt. These, according to him, are rotted foods. These are foods that are rotten. Now, of course, to anybody who is a serious adult who understands nutrition knows that this is not rotting, it's fermentation. Okay, fermentation is need to make all types of things like these fermented foods that just so happen to be very beneficial to your gut bacteria. Because when you ferment these vegetables, this facilitates the production of probiotics, which people take in a supplement form. Right. So what he calls rotting is actually a chemical process known as fermentation that gives us probiotics, beneficial gut bacteria. All right. So there's a lot of things that he doesn't know about nutrition, very basic things that he doesn't know about nutrition or basic biology. Right. Your body doesn't absorb 100% of the meat. If it did, then you could eat meat and you would never have a bowel movement. Right. So food, okay, your body puts it through a digestive process. As it moves through that digestive process, it gets broken down, it gets kind of semi-liquefied, and then your body pulls nutrients from it, and then whatever is left goes through the digestive tract and then gets excreted from the body as fecal matter. Apparently, he doesn't understand that. All right. So moving on from that, speaking of smells and gut health and things like this, it is very important to understand that if you have bloating or gas or whatever from eating legumes, it's probably because your body's not used to it. Right? Your body will adapt to your diet. Your body adapts to any set of conditions that you create in your body. Okay. I eat legumes. I eat beans. I never have gas because my gut is not compromised and my body is used to breaking down carbohydrates for energy. Because for the years, I have eaten a diet that has facilitated optimal gut health. So I don't have constipation, diarrhea, gas, bloating, fatigue, excessively high blood sugar, etc. Right? Acid reflux, gout. I don't have these issues, right? Cloudy urine, fizzy, bubbly urine that looks like beer. Don't have any of that, right? I've been plant-based for a decade, eating legumes, been able to build muscle, drop body fat, significantly improve my cognitive abilities, get rid of my the things that I used to have, like high blood pressure. I used to get eczema breakouts underneath my armpit, seasonal allergies. I would get sinus infections, things like this, right? I used to get a lot of plaque buildup on the surface of my tongue, right? Back when I used to eat animal products and things like that, right? Since being plant-based, my health has consistently improved over the years to the point that it is now, right? And I had a weight loss journey where I lost around 45 or so pounds, right? Where I went from 193 pounds at like 16% body fat down to 150 pounds at 6% body fat. Now I sit somewhere in between 160 and 155, right? So I'm pretty much living proof that what he's saying is not true, right? And the reason why I bring this up, the reason why I choose people like him is because, well, he's not just some regular person who, writes software code or delivers mail for the USPS or, something like that. He's a doctor, and his entire channel largely is about nutrition. You're going to have a channel about nutrition. You should understand what fermentation is, probiotics, prebiotics, postbiotics. You should understand the digestive enzymes that facilitate the breakdown of carbohydrate-rich foods, these kinds of things. You should understand what leads to acid reflux. So, for example, in an acidic diet, if sustained over a prolonged period of time, will gradually raise your pepsin levels in your gut. And if you raise your pepsin levels high enough as a result of having a high protein, high fat diet, your pepsin levels will rise. And then eventually this can lead to things like acid reflux, GERD symptoms, things like this, right? And people will take things like antacids, right, which are also problematic, but the primary substrate for these things are, for example, calcium bicarbonate. Right. You'll even have people on the internet saying, oh, if you're dealing with acid reflux, put baking soda in water and drink it down or whatever the case is. Or you can just have a more alkalizing diet, right? You can have more leafy greens like kale or spinach or watercress or romaine lettuce or broccoli, mustard greens, things of this nature. Okay. And so it's also very important to understand where the smell comes from. So if you're dealing with bad odor, body odor, armpit odor, you smell kind of funky, a little musty, bad breath, it feels dry and gross in your mouth, you got like thick layers of plaque over your tongue, this is a sign of excess bacteria in your upper gut, right? Or candida, things like this, right? And if you do not facilitate the adequate amount of beneficial gut flora in your lower gut, will translate to you having excess bacteria in your upper gut, and then this leaves you very susceptible to fungal infections in your gut, the development of Crohn's, colitis, diverticulitis, which is basically inflammation of the gut. Inflammation of the gut that is largely driven by excess homocysteine levels, right? And homocysteine, you need B12, you need folate, for example, to break down that homocysteine to keep those levels adequate. You're primarily going to be getting that from plant-based foods, right? Or you're going to be getting that B12 in part from your beneficial gut bacteria, right? So you don't want an excess level. Now, of course, your stomach is going to be acidic, but your stomach shouldn't be overflowing with an overproduction of acid. All right. Because this would lead to you're more prone to mold overgrowth or fungal overgrowth, harmful bacteria, things like this in your gut. Also, gout, uric acid accumulation, right? Your body will accumulate uric acid as a result of having excess levels of meat in your diet, very low in fiber, very acidic diet, which then also can lead to the excess depletion of magnesium and dehydration of your body, right? Which is very harmful to your kidneys over a period of time. The things that I'm talking about, all of these metabolic disorders, they take, for you to have a chronic condition, they take multiple years to develop. So typically, and I've had a lot of people come to me from a keto or a carnivore diet, they pretty much all tell me the same thing. It worked really well for the first few months, and then they started having problems. Right? This is always what ends up happening. And the reason why is because something may work in the short term. It doesn't mean that it's beneficial or that you should sustain it in the long term. Right? If you're doing something primarily to lose weight, it's probably not a good idea, right? You can develop a cocaine habit, and that'll help you lose weight. You can take Ozempic. That'll help you to lose weight. It'll also destroy your gut and your stomach lining as a result. And then when you come off the Ozempic, you gain the weight back rapidly right afterwards. And Ozempic under a lot of heat from all of the side effects. People primarily taking it as a weight loss medication rather than what it was originally for, which was diabetics, which is Ozempic is primarily just an appetite suppressant. The large reason why something would be an appetite suppressant is because this thing hits your gut like a brick, and your gut says, whoa, this is going to take a while to work on. This is a big load. So you got to shut down the appetite so we don't get any more inflows. And your gut can then take the time to really adequately break this particular thing down. The people who have chronic gut health issues, they tend to either have an overproduction of acid or an underproduction of acid, right? The underproduction of acid, and a lot of people as they get older, right, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s or so, you lose your appetite and you underproduce acid, right? So if you're, consuming a lot of food, perhaps high in protein and things like this, this can absolutely wreck your gut and feel like a ton of bricks on your gut as a result. If you're experiencing that heavy feeling in your gut, uncomfortable, you're excessively full, and you realize this happens after high protein meals, well, that's because your gut is not producing the adequate amounts acid to be able to break down that protein, right? Or in a lot of cases, the animal products. So it just feels heavy. Even if you're eating very protein-rich sources of plant-based foods, like you're eating tofu or you're eating, what is that, soy textured protein or something like that, or textured protein soy, whatever it's called, where basically they just take they extract the protein from soybeans and they make this nugget just straight up soy protein, right? And it's real thick and dense. It's really high protein. It's like vegetable textured protein or something. What's it called? Somebody help me out. I've never gotten that stuff, but I know they put it in like a lot of mock meats and things like that, like vegan chicken nuggets and that kind of thing. And you eat a lot of that stuff. I mean, it can very uncomfortably sit on your gut. It's a very miserable feeling. So that's where you would want to really moderate your food sources. Maybe you want to, in order to raise your acid levels to a healthy level, you may want to have more, for example, citrus fruits. You may want to eat more pineapple, right? You may want to eat more mango, these kinds of things. Okay. You may want to have more broccoli, right? If broccoli gives you trouble, maybe you want to go down to, you may want to have a more tender green, right? The spinach, the kale, the mustard greens, the arugula, the watercress, baby butter lettuce, that type of thing, right? But you need a more water-rich diet if this is something that you're dealing with. Your food shouldn't sit on your gut and feel heavy. All right. Let me catch up with some of y'all in the comments here. Textured vegetable protein. There we go. Yeah, what's it called? TVP for short. There we go. That's what it is. All right. Are organic BPA-free canned black beans and kidney beans okay to eat, or do you always make the beans from scratch? Yeah, so um canned beans work fine, right? As long as it's a BPA-free can and it's not leaching toxic substances into the can, which is the point of the BPA-free cans. Um that is the time efficient option. The cost efficient option is actually buying the dry beans in bulk. Okay. Speaking of beans, one great way to introduce beans into your diet without having gas and bloating and things like that, if you have a compromised gut, is you basically, if it's dry beans, you want to soak it for you want to soak the beans for about 8 hours or so. And then you can put them like in a rice cooker or boil them in the pot for several hours until they get soft. Depending on how much you're cooking at a time would depend on how long the process takes. Um, and then once you're done cooking them, you can throw them in a blender with all of your sauces and seasonings and spices and herbs and things like that. And you can puree the beans to make like a bean sauce. This has actually been a great way. I've had a lot of people who normally, beans sometimes would give them problems in the beginning, but after doing that, they don't really have any issues at all. So that's a great strategy to use. All right. Oh yeah, rotting meat smells a lot better, right? What an example of misinformation in the internet. Yeah, I mean, massive blind spot, right? Um, the idea that like, oh yeah, it's 100% absorbed, like your body acts like a sponge and just sucks up meat into it, and there's just nothing that just comes out is obscene, right? Your house cat is living proof that that's not true. All right, let's see. Humble request to share some more Indian, Asian raw fruits for better gut health issues with huge underweight issues and gain weight with Indian, Asian raw fruit diet. Yeah, I mean, one fruit you might want to have on a pretty consistent basis for your gut health is pineapple. Pineapple, that would be a good one for you. If you're trying to gain weight, it would be a good idea to have more soups and stews. You may not necessarily want to be like, you may not want to be fully raw. You want to incorporate more, let's say, lentils into your diet, right? So like, for example, red lentils, which is my favorite, like red split lentils or something like that, is the easiest to actually digest. So if you have a sensitive gut, that should be a pretty viable option. And then there would be other things like sweet potato, right? So those lentils and the sweet potato and some type of tender leafy greens you can put, depending on how your gut responds to it. You can put in a little bell pepper, Well, onion or leeks would probably be better. Leeks would be a little bit better on your gut. So leeks or green onion or something like that, right? And then all of the other fruits that I named when you asked this question before, sticking with those, right? I don't know what fruits you have access to, but melons, your berries. What else did I say last time? If you can get kiwis, pears, right, these are some good options as well. The golden kiwis would probably be easier on your gut than the green ones. So if you can find the golden kiwis, I'd probably go with those. I think the smell of rotting meat is worse. Yeah, absolutely. Like because I mean that sulfur is just brutal, right? It's absolutely brutal. If you could monomeal one fruit, which would it be? I mean, I monomeal a lot of fruits. Like I'll do monomeals with grapes, but I think that my favorite ones to do it with is any kind of melons. So watermelon, cantaloupe, honeydew, mono fruit meals. You can do it with berries actually. That might be a bit expensive depending on where you are. But yeah, the melons, mangoes, grapes, tangerines, or any kind of like citrus fruit, the monomeal that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, those are my top ones that I would do that with. That's right. Hit the like button, right? Like the stream if you like the stream. True. That's right. Miss D has spoken. Hit the like button to give Coach a much deserved thumbs up. True. Absolutely. So that was one thing I wanted to cover tonight. Now, another thing I wanted to cover is a secondary thing. And it's more of like a social issue, right? So sometimes people ask me about social issues that revolve around like family and whatnot. So I came across an interesting post that someone had posted on Instagram that I'm mutually connected with. And they made like a kind of a funny video about how it's a bit uncomfortable to be a vegan and go to shop for your mom and buy animal products because she doesn't want to be going in the grocery store and walking around the grocery store with a cart full of animal products and people know her online as a vegan. So she don't want people to see that she's like some kind of fraud. It's awkward, right? And then also being a vegan, generally speaking, especially if you're ethically vegan, where you're strongly against animal abuse and animal exploitation. Not only do you not be seen with a cart full of animal products, but you also don't want to be picking this stuff off the shelf and actually making the purchase either, because then you're like kind of complicit. It's an icky feeling. And my view on this is anybody who asks you to set aside or abandon your values to get them animal products from the store or anything that you find unethical is highly disrespectful. Asking you to do that is a highly disrespectful thing. Now, I'm not saying it's intentional, whether you're trying to do it or not trying to do it. You can disrespect somebody and you're not trying to be disrespectful, but you could be disrespectful. But this is absolutely a form of disrespect, right? Now, think about it this way. Let's say you're taking care of an aging parent and your aging parent tells you, hey, go to the store and get me a bottle of whiskey and a couple packs of cigarettes. Now, you know that this is somebody that you're taking care of, and this is somebody who you're putting your energy and time into looking after them in their, in their debilitated state, whatever degree that is to. They could be in fine health. They may not be really anything wrong with them, and you're just around them for the time being. There's a variety of reasons why you wouldn't do that, especially if they know you're against alcohol consumption and cigarette smoking. Number one, and number two, you know that those things are extremely detrimental to their health. So asking you to be complicit in helping them poison themselves is a form of disrespect, right? Um, and this could be applied to anything. Hey, go to the corner and meet this dealer, and get me some crack. It's disrespect. I'm not going to pick up no crack. It's disrespectful. Ask me nothing like that. Hey, go to the naughty video store and get me a porn DVD, right? So I'm not going. I'm not doing that. Don't ask me to do ridiculous stuff, right? This is no matter, and you can add anything you want. It could be lottery tickets, it could be cigarettes, it could be weed, crack, heroin, it could be whatever. This could be somebody who's like 400 plus pounds. Hey, go to the store, get me a box of Twinkies or whatever the case is, right? I know the proverbial Twinkies. We all like the Twinkie thing, but this is a form of disrespect, right? And so that's my stance on it. So you don't want to be complicit in helping them poison themselves, and you also don't want to abandon your values. Right? Now, a lot of times when people who are not vegan, they may hear me make an argument like this, and they go, "Oh, you're so self-righteous," or something like that. It's not about me being self-righteous, right? That doesn't really mean anything. Like, well, how do you define self-righteous? Because you can accuse anybody of having an ethical position of being self-righteous, right? Like you're righteous or you're not righteous. Like I don't know what self-righteous means, but I haven't really met anybody or known anybody who would disagree with me on the principled argument that I'm making, right? And so I'm kind of interesting. Have y'all in the comments? Have y'all ever experienced this kind of thing? Y'all relate to this in any way? I'm kind of curious to see what y'all opinion is. It's called Jersey finger. What's Jersey finger? Does anybody know what Jersey finger is? Oh, okay. Thanks for your help, good brother. Can you tell me how you would repair a ruptured finger tendon without surgery? Oh, that's Jersey finger. I don't know anything. I've never heard of Jersey finger before. I'm not sure. A ruptured tendon without surgery. I don't know if I can really confidently answer that question because I don't know enough about tendon repair without surgery, right? If it's ruptured or I don't know how badly is it, damaged, or how long has it been damaged, that kind of thing. That kind. I couldn't really say for sure. That's a bit out of my wheelhouse. That seems like something that would require a surgery, if I had to guess. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. Can I bodybuild with only eating cantaloupe? Can you? I'm kind of inclined to think that you could. I mean, technically you could, and I would never suggest that somebody do that. I think I'm a big fan of diversity in your diet. I think that you should have a diverse array of different types of food so that you're getting all of the necessary nutrients that you may need, right? So just doing cantaloupe, just eating cantaloupe for bodybuilding, because bodybuilding implies you're trying to maximize muscle mass and all of that kind of stuff. I don't know if cantaloupe alone is going to do it. You broke your fast wrong and ate lentils and chickpeas on the third day. On the third day of what? I got to scroll up. I should start further at the top. Let's see. After 18-day juice fast, my body could not digest beans anymore. I've been avoiding them ever since. I still eat them, but notice the bloat right away. I wonder if I can fix this to enjoy beans again. Oh, okay, gotcha. So you fasted for 18 days. Yeah, so basically, if you fast for 18 days, the longer you fast, the lower your stomach acid is going to be, right? So if you go for 18 days, you've shut down digestion significantly at that point. So if you just go and you just dump starchy, protein rich foods on your gut, after that, yeah, you may run into some issues, right? That might be an uncomfortable experience, right? It's a giant workload out of nowhere after being through a prolonged period of fasting. Yeah, I mean, I think even after 3 days of fasting, if you just do just high protein food right out, you want to ease digestion on. You don't want to just go slam right into it. That may not be a good idea. You may have to ease into it a bit. So I would say to break the fast, probably with something that is not as starchy. Like I like to break a long fast with something like overnight oats or something, or like a banana smoothie with maybe like some chia seeds or hemp seeds or something like that. It's not going to be anything particularly heavy after a long fast, especially if you already had a compromised gut. Right. Any tips on how to kill sugar cravings? Eat enough food. It's a very unsatisfying answer, but it's true. Um, Sugar cravings are often a sign that you're under eating a lot. Your body's starving for glucose. So it really depends on, I would have to know what you've been doing for the last 3 months or so, or the last 6 months. I would have to know what your diet has been like in order to give you a more adequate answer. So, for example, let's say you've been dealing with really poor sleep quality, lethargia, right? A lot of fatigue. You have a low carb diet because you're trying to lose weight, that kind of thing. Then that could be a result of why you would have like sugar cravings. Usually, when you have sugar cravings, it's energy deprivation, and just chronic under eating. That's like the most common thing, right? It could also be a result of magnesium deficiency, and low serotonin levels in a compromised gut, which would lead to the higher propensity to go through swings of depression and anxiety. So this is in large part a gut health thing. So one of the ways that you can really get the sugar cravings under control is by having a more robust carb dominant diet that is filling and staying hydrated. Right? So this can be like a variety of things, like implementing matcha tea, moringa tea, ginger tea, dandelion tea, milk thistle, right? All of these teas and whatnot, they really help with your gut health. Eating more fruits in your diet, right? Maybe having more, like for example, bananas. Having watermelon. You can eat like large portions of watermelon, cantaloupe, tangerines, grapes, grapefruit, pineapple, things like this, and really load up on these things. And the fruit of it is very good because the fruits give you those simple, easy to absorb sugars that can really satiate your body's glucose needs. And so hydrating your body and giving your body the necessary levels of glucose that it needs, that really gets the sugar cravings under control, right? So that's probably, I think that's a safe answer to give you. That's like probably the most common thing that would be your problem. What about collards? Yeah, collard greens. I mean, that collard greens is all good. It's all good. All right, let's see. We're gonna have we can have a bit of a short one tonight, folks. I'm not gonna hold y'all too much, but I'll answer some more questions here. That's right, blueberry gang. My mom loves blueberries. She gets super excited about blueberries. or, or what vegans call blues. All right. Could you explain the damage ultra processed foods does to the gut? That's a good question. It could possibly be a bit of a lengthy answer. But what I'll say is this. Ultra processed foods are foods that don't really provide, they don't move through your gut very well. And the main reason why is because these are foods that provide a lot of preservatives, right? So preservatives kind of insulate your foods from the digestive process, right? So high levels of, let's say, sodium, this can inhibit the digestive process, right? If the sodium inside the processed foods is excessive. And then some processed foods have like a waxy coating and they add all types of other additives and food coloring and whatnot. This inhibits nutrient absorption in foods, right? Now, also processed foods, the more you process a food, the less of the nutrients it has in it. Right. So this process, when people talk about processed foods, we're talking about is denaturing or denaturing. So this denaturing process degrades the food to the point where it's just like simple carbs and fats, and there's not really much of a micronutrient profile. And then there's no fiber. So this can lead to a congestion issue. You can overeat processed foods. They sit real heavy on your gut. Your gut may not pull nutrients from them very well. And the chemicals in them and the congestion that they create causes inflammation in the gut. Right. So this chronic inflammation over time can cause you to have, IBS or leaky gut or whatever the case is. It can damage your gut over time. Processed foods are acutely inflammatory, but it's this accumulative process, and diet is a zero-sum game, which means the more of one thing you eat, the less of another, right? So at any given point in time, I'm faced with one meal and there's different choices I can make. If I choose a processed food rather than a whole food, then I'm going to be naturally depleting the amount of nutrients that I would be getting in that meal. So I would be getting a lot of carbs, fats, maybe even proteins from that food, depending on what it is. But there's a lot of the micronutrients, and vitamins, minerals, and things like that I'm not getting, antioxidants, etc. And as a result, this can cause an imbalance in my body. Now, when we talk about ultra processed foods, this can be anything from M&Ms to bacon. Right? So the answer, I'm like, this can be a very long answer because it depends on the type of food, right? When we say ultra processed, for example, bacon is loaded with nitrates, which is really bad for your kidneys, right? This is deeply problematic. And so this can really cause a lot of inflammation in your kidneys, your liver, your vascular system. You can end up with things like swollen lymph nodes. You can get an overaccumulation of bacteria in your stomach, your upper gut, a fungus. You can get, all types of stuff, right? High blood pressure, hypertension as a result of vascular constriction, dehydration, which your body can then respond to with edema. And then that oxidative stress damaging nerve endings can lead to neuropathy. These foods can contribute to insulin resistance. Okay. And that insulin resistance can then also lead to neuropathy, headaches, migraines, nausea, heartburn, all types of GERD symptoms, gout. All types of stuff, right? So it depends on the type. I mean, we're talking about Jolly Ranchers. Are we talking about Slim Jims? Right? It could be a variety of different things that we're talking about. So I think basically it's inflammatory, and it causes an imbalance in your nutrition, and it has an accumulative effect over time. The more this becomes a part of your diet. If you have a mostly healthy diet and from time to time you eat a ultra processed food, it's not really going to have that much of a negative effect for most people. Is when it becomes a habitual thing. That's when it becomes a real problem and you start to develop issues. Is a 90 juice fast optimum for healing, or can you do it just eating grapes for 90 days? Also, is constipation normal during the first weeks of a fast? Um, well, yeah, so a 90-day juice fast, is it optimal for healing? I mean, it depends. I don't know if it's universal. Well, it's not universal for everyone. It depends. Like, are you doing a juice fast because your gut can't handle fiber moving through your gut for whatever reason? Your intestines are very inflamed, and so fiber moving through your digestive tract, or any solid foods at all moving through your digestive tract is problematic for your gut. In that case, you may want to do more so just have like a juice fast, right? If you're extremely dehydrated and constipated, maybe from there you want to do a juice fast, right? So there's certain reasons why you would do juice fast. Maybe you're having a Crohn's flare up, right? Crohn's or colitis or whatever. You have a major flare up, right? Diverticulitis, right? You got some type of flare up where you're in pain from eating. Well, you should give your gut a break, right? If you don't really have much of an appetite and your gut is in a lot of pain, right, then a juice fast could be really good in that case. So it depends on why you're doing it. Is it just universally optimal for all kinds of healing? Not necessarily, no. Because sometimes you need the fiber. It's more of a timing thing, right? So healing is it requires a good amount of experience because you have to be agile in your approach. You can't really just take some cookie cutter approach and it's just going to work straight across the board. It doesn't really work that way. So for example, I've had people who are type 2 diabetic, and they do well eating grapes, and as they continue to eat grapes normally throughout the week, their blood sugar improves and their insulin sensitivity improves very quickly over time, right? Where their numbers start improving big time from like day to day and week to week, right? Where I've had people with like an A1C of like 12 and change and cut their A1C down to like, a 6 or a 5.7 in like 8 weeks, right? Having a carb dominant diet. And then I've had others where we put grapes in their plan and their blood sugar, boom, right through the ceiling, eating grapes, right? So you had to take that out the plan because it's just nuts, right? So it really depends on the person. It's not a thing about all fruits because we can cut out the grapes and then replace the grapes with watermelon, and it's perfect, no issues whatsoever. And then we add candy, perfect, no problems whatsoever. Honeydew, perfect, no problems whatsoever, right? So it just depends on the person, and a lot of this is the reason why gut health and your gut flora is so important, is because your gut bacteria and in your lower gut specifically, um, that will determine your success and your results with your healing journey. By the way, if you need help, you need to book a call with me to talk about your issue specifically, or you want to book a call with me, you can hit the link in the description box of this video, and there's a link there where you can book a call with me. Also, from that link, you can join my free newsletter as well. Um, so yeah, hit that link in the description and take advantage of that. I would love to know how an athlete on a budget can do this diet. Well, it depends on what diet you're talking about. Right. I would assume you probably mean a high raw diet. So it depends on your budget, but generally speaking, um, lentils very cost effective. Rolled oats very cost effective. Bananas very cost effective. Um, Grapes more or less very cost effective. Buying a 15 or 18 pound watermelon at a time, very cost effective. I mean, like 80 something cents a pound. It's a pretty big deal. Right. So that you can buy a big old watermelon and you can eat through that for like the whole week. Right. Sweet potatoes, very cost effective. Right. So yeah, definitely is very cost effective. Depends on, how much food you need to eat and all that kind of stuff. But the best thing that you can do if you're on a tight budget is meal prep and prep all your own food and eat at home rather than eating out. People have been asking me about this a lot. What do you think about eating for your blood type? So there isn't any scientific evidence that actually demonstrates the legitimacy of eating for your blood type. There are a few there's a few inconsistencies when it comes to eating for your blood type. So for example, your blood type doesn't dictate what is the most compatible with your digestive tract. Your gut bacteria does, right? So it would be the makeup of your gut microbiome that you would eat in accordance with, right? Not your blood type, right? Diet is more so species specific, not blood type specific. So for example, I'm blood type O, and according to that ideology, I would do best on a diet, eating a lot of animal products, right, or a meat based diet. Honestly, obviously, me being in the shape and the condition that I am, not eating any animal products or meat at all, I disagree. Right, I've been on both sides of the. I've had a high meat diet. Um, I've had a fully raw, high raw vegan plant based diet, and much better going the plant based route than I ever was eating animal products. Being self righteous would be holding yourself to a lower or no standard that you would hold everyone else to. There you go. See, that's why we need the definition. We need definitions, right? Because whenever I make like these arguments, I make them from a specific principle. And it's usually a principle that people disagree with. So, for example, if I say everybody who is able to be, I don't think that do I think that everyone on the planet should be vegan? I don't know if it's rational to ask that because not everybody lives in a region of the world where they can be, right? So, for example, let's say you live in somewhere where there really is no vegetation, right? You live in a really cold climate and it's snowing all the time, or whatever the case is. Are you going to be able to eat like a high raw diet or eat a bunch of fruit or whatever the case is? Probably not, right? So there are extenuating circumstances where you do your best, but anyone who is practically able to do it should do it, right? And here is the position that I hold in general when it comes to this. Somebody was to ask me, "Hey, am I anti-violence?" For the most part, yes. But under certain circumstances, no. I think that violence is very beneficial and necessary sometimes. A great example is people break into your home and they're armed with ill intent. Now, you can try to find a peaceful solution if you want. I wouldn't advise that. Right. Um, so there is nuance to the position, but that's the principle. Can you practically be able to do it? I think that plant-based or eating plant-based is practical, right? I think it yields the best outcomes, not just for us as individuals, but societally for the ecosystems that we live in. So one of the arguments I find myself making the most for a plant-based diet is our population number is too large for us to eat animal products, especially even eating a high meat diet. There's too many of us to do it. Any organism that exists in high numbers and eats all the living things in its environment, it's called a pathogen, right? It's a pandemic. It's a plague, right? If you look at like an organism under a microscope, and that organism is attacking and destroying all the other cells in the environment and just eating through everything. This is like the basis for zombie movies, by the way, where ravenous zombies, they eat everything in sight, mainly just all the animals and people until there's no one left. And then everybody's just zombies, right? And then they all just rot and die and everything collapses, right? This is the basis for zombie movies. Your numbers are too high to sustain it, right? Carnivores do not exist in high numbers. They just don't. They don't. They don't exist in high numbers. If we are going to do everything we can to improve our health outcomes and live the longest lives possible, we cannot do that while constantly eating through all of the other animals in our environment. Just can't do it, right? You mathematically cannot sustain a healthy ecosystem doing that. This is not about my emotions or anything like that. This is just how the math checks out. This is just a principle, right? Your numbers are too large for you to do it. That's it. And then, of course, the most basic argument is I'm against animal abuse and exploitation. If you are going to insist on engaging in animal abuse and exploitation, well, you better have a really good reason for doing it, because generally everyone is against animal abuse, even people who are not vegan, right? Animal abuse is a crime, and it's the thing that pisses everybody else. It pisses everybody off. As a matter of fact, animal abuse is one of the hallmark signs that somebody is a psychopath, because psychopaths, when psychopaths carry out violence against other living beings, they typically start with animals or small animals, right? And the inability to empathize with others is the problematic thing, right? So if you can just abuse and exploit animals and you're unable to empathize with them while they're screaming and crying and carrying on, and you're just blood splattering all the walls and all of this, demonic stuff. If that's okay with you and you're not able to empathize with that, you have a personality disorder, right? That's psychopathy. It's not my opinion, it's just how it is, right? So when I make these arguments, where they're like ethical arguments, my ethical arguments are usually things that are principle based. It's very difficult to disagree with, right? So, and I'm sensitive to like the getting animal products for your parents in the grocery store kind of thing, right? And the reason why I'm sensitive to that is because a lot of the people who I help to reverse chronic illnesses are people's parents, right? People who are in their 50s and 60s and whatnot. And they've got high blood pressure, they've got high cholesterol, heart disease, diabetes, they got kidney disease, all types of stuff. They got gout, and they've ate themselves into that. And I know what they've been eating to get like that. So I'm against feeding them the things to get them that way. So if you love your parent and you don't want them to have gout and hypertension and kidney disease and all that, then you would feed them the things that cause those issues. I don't see how anybody would disagree with me on that unless you want your parents to be in worse health. Now you can say, oh, well, it doesn't happen to everybody. It may not happen to everybody, but is it necessary to gamble with your parents' life? That's the question. You can chance it. They may not get kidney disease or whatever the case is. They may not get gout. They may not. But if you're going to make that gamble, is it really worth it? And would you want somebody to gamble with your life or your health? Right. I think these are things that we can all agree with. All right, we got a lot here. What is this? What about cannabinoid hypernemesis hypermesis syndrome? I don't know a whole lot about that, so I don't know how much of a answer I could give you. So yeah, all right. I think I'm all caught up here with the questions. All right. So I think we did pretty good tonight. I think I addressed all the points. Despite the fact that I slept very poorly last night for some reason. I think it's because I went to bed too late and I woke up too early. So, we all have those days sometimes, but nonetheless, it was a productive day. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And I will catch y'all on the Monday Night Live next Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern.